Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic This Week and Tech. It's 6. What is it, Sally? I've forgotten it already.
682 is what you wrote down.
682, and I've got a mind that's wandering. We've got a great panel. We've got some great topics. We've got a special guest. We've got Debbie of Delta CX. I'm sure she'll have something to say on this show. So I'm going to let the panel quickly let themselves introduce themselves. Ladies first. Let's start with Debbie. Debbie, would you like to introduce yourself quickly to the tribe?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Debbie from Delta CX. We're a full-service CX and UX consultancy, only on the periphery of WordPress, though I've been using WordPress for many years, and my boyfriend has a WordPress design company, so we are often talking about WordPress. He's on the Polyglots team, and he gets to see sneaky things early. Yeah,
I'm not going to respond to that. That might get me into trouble. Sally,
you can't be against the Polyglots team. They're lovely.
And they're very necessary. Yes. And they're doing some great work.
Thank you.
Sally, would you like to introduce
yourself?
Yes, I'm Sally Getch. This is ADD Kitty, and I know I'm only invited on the show for the cat.
Yes. The more cats we get on the show, the higher my rankings increases. John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, John Locke from Lockdown SEO.
And I've got my friend Spencer. Spencer, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, it's Spence from WPLaunchify.com.
Yes.
By the way, Sally, the cat never gets old. It's
yes, like... yes, meow. So before we go into the main articles and stories we're going to be discussing, I've got a message from my major sponsor, Castos. We'll be back in a few moments. We're coming back, and Castos offers a great special offer, plus the other sponsors of the show. Plus, I've got a list of great plugins, WordPress services that I personally have tried and recommend. You can get all these goodies and knowledge by going to the WP-Tonic /recommendations, and you'll find them all there, my beloved tribe. So let's go into the first story that caused a little bit of controversialism in the WordPress community. WordPress Tom makes major unannounced pricing changes, slashes free storage limits. Spencer, I think you put this in my radar first. It's a story that has changed during the week. It's a very fluid story. What did you make of it, Spencer?
When this original news came out, I think I actually saw Rob Howard posted it, which I like his source too, but you could hear the sound of the garbage trucks. You know, when you're in the city and you hear beep, 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 beep. That's a big truck backing it up. Because as soon as this came out, I didn't have to wait more than like an hour or something before beep, beep. Because what a faux pas. The problem, and we've been discussing this in the Dynamic WordPress group and some other groups, the problem is we're seeing the difference between C-suite people who represent the bubble world of the investors first versus those who are product people first, who have built their own companies and understand you can't grow a community of people from the ground up and then stick your thumb in their eye suddenly. And what's so weird here is that this is so fundamentally at odds with everything Matt has been saying since day one about WordPress is a place to make the free blogs about ballerinas and everything else. And now in 2022, to go from like gigabytes down to 500 megabytes is like saying you can put up two ballerina pictures and then you're good. Then you got to start paying.
It could be worse. He could follow the prayer book of Google, and your free workspace domain. You got to cough up money.
Like, hello, they bought Tumblr. Tumblr is free. Facebook free. Google account free. It's like
plus storage is one of the cheapest things that's available.
It's the cost of doing business to get people to use your service. So here's how I'll leave it to everybody else. Sorry. I'll finish up by saying, you know how this could have been handled differently? Could have been handled differently. not saying Google's awesome, but Google has been giving us, I think Sally said it's 2 years, at least a year of a head start of, hey gang, that thing you started for free that gives you all of our Google apps, in like a year or two, you're going to have to start paying $6, $12. But even then it's $12. Or they could have done, hey, everybody that's using the service, you're grandfathered in for another 2 years for free or something. But to just have some C-suite yucca-puck come in and go, hey, guess what? You woke up yesterday, it was free. Today it's not. Sorry, craziness.
So, Sally, do you think? I think it's a communication problem fundamentally. What do you think, Sally?
Well, I agree it's a communication problem, but it's like, do these people never learn anything? Because we had essentially the same thing happening when WooCommerce changed from a buy it once to an annual, and we've seen this kind of thing happen several times where there's a big backlash against something that's, poorly announced. The pricing is not necessarily outrageous, although I do think the I do think that cutting the storage was just low and stupid.
It's like cutting a man at the knees, isn't it?
Well, Google, for all the fact that I have like 8 Google Apps accounts with multiple email addresses for all of them, and I'm not like looking forward to either coughing up $5 a month.
Well, I had to do it yesterday, but they offered me 50% for the first. Don't pay anything for the first 6 months, Google. So I thought, oh well.
All right. Well, I'm going to switch some of them over and move some of them, elsewhere because I just don't.
Yeah.
I'm doing enough with them.
I've only got one.
But anyway,
I've only got one. So.
Getting back to WordPress.com, yeah, communication. Everything's more expensive right now. I had to raise my rates this year, but if you need to give people some warning so that they can decide either, okay, well, it's worth it to me to cough up $15 a month, and or it's not worth it to me. I'm going to go move my stuff somewhere else. And the fact that, right. I mean, this is the same company that's trying to lure all the people who are doing Wix and Squarespace and stuff. And you're not going to do a whole lot of luring if you don't give them,
I was going to use a different word. Debbie, what do you reckon about this, Debbie?
There's a couple of things that jump out at me. One of them is that Vimeo just went through this. Didn't anybody see where Vimeo said, oh, by the way, we're going to cut what you're getting, and now you're going to have to pay $3,500 a month, and everybody, lost their poop over it. And then Vimeo had to walk that one back and then give people free stuff just to keep them. So not only do you not make the money you're hoping to make, you start losing money because you have to give away free stuff to try to put a Band-Aid on the wound. So clearly they didn't learn from that quite recently public mess. And then also I find when I'm working at companies, this is typically where there is a disconnection between the strategists that make strategic decisions and sales-based decisions, and then what's actually happening with users and customers and the community. And this can be solved with piloting programs. This can be solved with CX and UX research. You can't just run a survey on this one. I think we have to talk to humans and see what humans think of this stuff. But I think I could say research would help here, but I'm not sure anyone would see the changes that WordPress made and say, yes, this is exactly what I wanted. This is absolutely right for my needs. Thank you so much. You've correctly identified my needs and made a plan that matches them. So that when I see that disconnect, I say, this is a disconnect between company strategists and the actual users and the community.
Well,
and that can be solved, but a lot of people don't like to spend the time and money to make it better.
Yeah. Oh, I love how you link.
Can I add a word in that Debbie reminded me of? I saw an ad, a story. Sorry, it was like in The Economist or something. There's a new term called, I think it's called shrinkflation. And in the world we're living in, where the cost of in the cost of tangible goods world, where you have to buy things in the supply chain that cost more, These companies are simply keeping the price the same, but shrinking the can of coffee or the package. Now, here's what's so ironic. It's absolutely bullshit that WordPress has a larger cost of hosting. That is just not true. The cost of hosting has been going down. Plus, it's just like the electrons going through your cable. It was exactly as Debbie says, there was somebody living in their bubble ecosystem at the top that has no idea how disrespectful it is to the core customer, and nobody thought to ask them. But if they had asked some real people, I couldn't agree with you more. Like, who would have said, okay, Spence, here's the suggestion. We're going to cut your thing by 80%. And how do you feel about that? Like, would anybody say yes to that? Of course not.
Yeah,
But
so John,
here we are.
I think the communication at Debbie might be because the founder likes to talk to penguins rather than customers. And secondly,
They're trying to force the monetization to go faster. They want to push people out of the free plan. But again, that's where
can we let John have a remark about this?
Sorry, John, I apologize. I'm sorry.
Right. So, John, I think the founder's more interested in talking to king penguins, and also, I also think, John, that this is linked to the investment money, the 300 million they got from Salesforce. I think I just sense, to use the language, the shit is hitting the fan. We need to see a return on our money. The flame of the gas is being turned up about getting some return on this investment. What do you reckon, John?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think what is a sour taste to people is people who are on the free plan. Like overnight, they were told, or they were on the bottom tier plan or whatever. Is it mentions in here that overnight they were basically told that their storage limit was sliced down to 500 megabytes, from 3 gigs to 500 megs overnight. No notice, no advance warning. No, like, hey, we're doing this in 3 months or anything like that. An interesting thing, like the leader said that most of the people who are on WordPress.com are there to blog. And I would make a guess that that's not the market that they want to be in. No, they really want to be...
Because those people don't buy the upgrades and the plugins.
No, they're just there to, write their fringe blog for the most part. Yeah, they want to compete with Squarespace and Wix, where it's a website builder for small businesses who don't want to hire anybody to do it, and they just want to do it themselves. But yeah, Spence mentioned they had to walk it back. I think it's the way that they did it more than anything else. They're desperately trying to be on that same level, make WordPress.com. I don't think that it will ever be on the same level as Wix or Squarespace or Shopify. I think that their best their best way for making money would probably be to leverage the .org and invest more into WooCommerce and use that. But I think that that's really where they should be.
Yeah, I always thought that. I always thought of Squarespace, Wix. I always thought the target, and the most profitable target, is Shopify, and really pump up. Have a really great alternative to Shopify through WooCommerce. Plus,
yeah, but there's pros and cons.
WooCommerce, right? WooCommerce is a great alternative in a lot of ways because you can do stuff with it you can't do with Shopify, but it is not nearly as easy to set up.
Yeah, but
have a hosted platform. I always thought they were going to do that, and I don't know why they didn't.
If you were to look at Wix is $16 a month with 2 gigabytes and one of the most incredibly awesome onboarding and user experiences I've ever seen. You don't own it, you don't control it, but if you were a blogger who wanted like a simple way to go from 0 to hero,
And you didn't care if you couldn't move your content
I mean,
anywhere ever.
Wix would be infinitely better choice. And I mean, that's the point, isn't it? It's like there are people who just want to like turn a key and be done. And if you're going to have to cough up 15, 16 bucks, isn't it really about the user experience? Because WordPress is far from easy. It is just the thing that you own and control that you can make awesome. But if you're not going to invest that time, then say la vie.
Oh, and on to story 2. All right. What Elon Musk could mean for Twitter? Well, this is delicious. Who to start with? Let's start with Debbie. What do you reckon about and this was a fluid story. He bought 10% of Twitter, and then they invited him to the board. I'm sure the present CEO really is going to really love being the mentorship that he's going to receive from Elon. It's going to go down well. Over to you, Debbie.
Yeah, I didn't follow this one that much, but part of me thought that
You're not
it
a
came.
Twitter person, Debbie?
Hey, again, what?
You're not a Twitter person?
No, I don't use Twitter. I gave it up I got tired of it in 2008. I dumped it. I started early and dumped it early. And I'm also not an Elon Musk fan. But my guess, a part of what I thought when I saw that was, oh wow, they really want to bury that story about the conditions at Tesla. Because they were starting to get some traction with journalistic articles about how Black people and other people are treated at Tesla and the working conditions there. And then I guess someone must have been like, whoa, wait a minute, we can distract this whole thing with this wacky Twitter thing. And so I guess I would have to give a giant who cares to this one, because it's just a bunch of rich white guys doing business with rich white guys, and it's they didn't ask me for advice, and
No?
I don't think very much of most social media, so I might disqualify myself on this one, but I would say everybody go check out what's really going on at Tesla. It's an interesting story and it's quite believable.
Right, John, you're a power user of Twitter. What do you reckon of all
Yeah,
this?
and I do agree with the Tesla thing. And for people who don't know, a bunch of people are suing because of racial discrimination, people being called slurs at work and all kinds of things. So this, I don't know if you can see this. This is from Elon Musk. This is something that he tweeted out. PC character with "I support the current thing," with Ukraine flag and like different like pride flags. And then this lovely one, Netflix waiting for the war to end to make a movie about a Black Ukraine guy falls in love with a transgender Russian soldier. He tweeted this crap. This is the guy that's on the board now.
Okay, I knew this man was a first-class tool, but really,
yeah, I'm on the same board. This is a guy who is.
You're gonna have to come back, Debbie. If you
Yeah.
want to come back just for that, Debbie, you can come back.
This is a guy that a bunch of people look up to, because in America, like, white guys look up to anybody who's rich. Never mind that his parents had a emerald mine that they got through questionable means. He didn't invent any of the things that he, is a so-called founder of. He comes in and swoops in and buys his way into being called like the founder or the owner. He didn't invent Tesla or any of these things. Other people did, and he just buys them up. So, I
get the sense, Johnny, you're not a fanboy.
He's a piece of trash.
I just love it. So Spencer, what does this mean for Twitter? Would you want to? It's like the CEO, the present CEO of Twitter. It's like being the CEO of Apple. And you remember that scene when Steve got invited back to Apple, and I forgot the name of the geezer that was the CEO at the moment, but there's a it was filmed because I think it was one of the Apple events, and he invites Steve back on the stage, and you can see on his face he knows he's doomed. You know, it's finished. So what? So I think Elon's got 10%, but I think he's almost effectively got his hands on the balls of Twitter. Really, what do you reckon, Spencer?
I mean, it's like a modern day Citizen Kane in reverse. I mean, honestly, he put the money up because he was frustrated with his inability to say what he wants when he wants. And when you have, obviously, he's uniquely positioned financially to basically do what he wants. The danger of this, of course, is that we've all seen how that works out, both from Citizen Kane all the way up through contemporary ownership of monopolistic commodity items, or oil refineries. That's what's empowering Putin right now, is the fact that they control basically all of Europe's oil, or at least did. So this is just an example of how we're making choices in the world as people. Like, there's 7+ billion of us, and there's like a handful of them, and we're allowing them to basically do stuff like this, but we continue to allow it by our actions. So I'm not saying I care that much about Twitter. I've stopped really using it for all intents and purposes too. But like, we know that Twitter plays a big hand in a lot of, other people's lives. And when people who have power and something to say get on it, they get out to a lot of people really quickly. I mean, just like the media.
Can I take 30 seconds to jump to build on that point? A lot of like what is covered in news nowadays is local news that gets bumped up to national news, is people looking at famous people's tweets and like, oh, what did this person say? So
journalists hang out on Twitter, so it's not totally irrelevant. But I found it interesting that Musk invests in Twitter. Twitter stock price goes up, but like all of Twitter's users are freaked out. And does that sound familiar to anybody about anything? I mean, that it's a story we've heard before. I don't know whether it will make a big difference or not. 9 point whatever percent is by no means a majority, but it does make him the single largest shareholder.
I think it just depends on how much weed he consumes. The more high it gets, more the outrageous the twits will be. Probably. I don't know.
A lot of people are saying that he might bring 45 back.
I mean,
I have heard that. I hope
politicians trying to make sound bites and other Twitter wars, like the Ted Cruzes and stuff. They literally say outrageous stuff so that it's like 180, characters, or like.
Did you have to swear on the podcast, Spencer?
Well, I mean,
Ted Cruz.
Smoke and mirrors, right? Say something outrageous, get everybody chattering. They're not paying attention to the truly outrageous things you're doing over there.
I reckon he's going to bring back Trump, don't you reckon? If he wants to increase the
I devoutly hope not.
But I mean, you're not going to bring back Walter Cronkite or having 3 major news networks. So now it's just everybody racing for attention in any way. And Twitter is one of those, 5 or 6 main news channels.
My beloved panel, I would never seek attention, would I? There we go. Oh, Debbie's looking sun. There we go. Oh, well, you're gonna have to watch this, my beloved tribe. We got great special Spencer. You've been outgunned. I'm sorry, Spencer.
By the way, that's a great effect. I love those things she's got there.
There we go. On to story 3. A little bit tedious, but there we go. Oh, Jetpack 10.8 introduces UR code, blah 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 blah. So, Spencer, the story continues about Jetpack and our great leader saying that that's the reason why people use WordPress, because of Jetpack. The saga seems to stagger on, doesn't it, Spencer?
We're talking about the QR code thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or Jetpack in general,
Yeah, I mean, so this is just, there's nothing where lately I can say that I've seen QR codes more frequently than I did in the past, and it's nothing to do with WordPress. It's just in general. In fact, I saw an interesting story that they used some drones. I think this was in China maybe, but they used some drones in a nighttime show to rickroll people. They made a QR code in the sky, and when you pointed your phone up, this is, by the way, brilliant marketing. You pointed your phone up and click the, use the QR code thing. It took you to a Rick Astley video. Never gonna, and it was like so perfect because they like literally had all the public looking up into the sky QR codes. So I just find it interesting because the newsworthiness of QR codes as a part of Jetpack would be like, and Jetpack introduces bold and underscore for text.
Right. And it's also interesting. I mean, the place I think QR codes are valuable is in print. Like, hey, you want to put a campaign tracking code in your print ad? Just slap a QR code on it, and then you'll know like who came to your website from the print ad. Right. The only time I have really used a QR code on the screen is when I'm doing that Android messages for web thing, where it props up a QR code on your screen. You hold your phone up and presto, you see all your text messages on your computer, and you can actually type with your fingers on a real keyboard.
QR codes are good in two places, both of which are equally annoying. One is when you're watching your TV and you want to get to NBC.com and you have to log in. So they give it to you on your screen so you can just not have to type NBC.com/activate and the number. Second, although it's the most annoying, is at restaurants now. 4 out of 5 restaurants don't have printed menus, and they make you use your QR code to see what they have, which is annoying, but actually probably nicer than touching that menu that some kid was wiping his nose on.
Yeah, so, it's got hygiene values.
Yeah.
I don't know what restaurants you'll go to.
Like,
I haven't been to a restaurant since
ramen noodle place, which is really delicious, but they're like, there's only 12 items on the menu. It's not that bad of a deal, but like that's the trend in restaurants.
You need to go to Sardinia. They've got better restaurants.
It's not the finest.
So Debbie, in UX, what is your considered opinion of QR codes? And it's obviously a key function of Jetpack. There we go.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I think we have to think about the use cases here. Now, first of all, there's only 2 QR codes that I've used maybe in the last decade. Here in Italy, we use QR codes to prove that we've been vaccinated. And so we've got phone apps. I even have something that I have on my watch.
Your wrist, is it the sign 666 of the devil or something?
No, you're anti-vax. You want to go there, girlfriend? So we show our QR codes when they are checking on vaccination, though I think for the coming tourist season, they're going to stop doing that. And then we also use QR codes we actually have a system where you ID verify yourself. So let's say, for example, I need to log in and see some of my business accounting documents in the Italian, IRS kind of portal. Well, it wants to make sure it's really me. And so I've got an app, and the screen shows a QR code. I hold the app over to it, and then I have to hold my fingerprint on the app, and then it goes, okay, you can see your stuff. So I think that's a pretty neat example of QR codes being used. But I think in general, whenever I consider QR codes, I feel like there's not a really great reason for them. And I have to compare them to the amount of time it would take somebody to put in a really short URL and maybe some sort of number. Like I just bought a really short URL for Delta CX. I bought dcx.to. And now I can do /101 or whatever. That's a really short URL for people to just type in even on their phone versus, hold on, let me unlock my phone. Let me open up my QR code scanning or photo app. Let me hold it up. Let me wait for that to focus. When we think about the task, then it starts looking like, wow, this is kind of slow. And so I think while there are some good examples of QR codes, I'm not really sure how most businesses are using them, and they still seem kind of faddy. I remember 10 or whatever years ago when everyone was putting QR codes on their business cards. Who remembers that one?
And I still see it sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I haven't seen a business card in a few years
Yeah,
because
what's
I
a
haven't
business card?
traveled.
I don't see
Yeah,
a whole
but-
lot of those, but I will see them sometimes on display in places.
There's probably a whole group of millennials that that are listening to this and thinking, "What's the
Wait, there are
what's the-"
millennials who listen to this?
Yeah, there might be. They're probably thinking, "What the hell are they talking about? What is a business card?"
Yeah, what are all these old people on about?
Yeah, what's the hell's like talking about? What's a record? As a laser player, what the hell?
I just tend to think Jetpack is a little bloated. Every time I look at
just a
Jetpack,
tiny bit.
very
every time I
diplomatic,
look at
Debbie.
Jetpack, I go, what does this do? Or what doesn't this do? It's who remembers Saturday Night Live? It's a floor wax. It's a, what was
It's
the
a
other thing?
dessert topping.
Thank you. It's a floor wax.
cleaner.
It's a dessert topping. So it's like, whenever I look at Jetpack, I'm like, what is this? What isn't this? And do I need this? I'm just going to delete it. Every time I start a new WordPress site, I delete Jetpack. I'm like, honey, do I need this?
Nope.
Yeah,
It's
we're
the
WordPress
monetization and a plugin.
people. We have that fault, but I always feel a bit. How to put it? I always feel a bit guilty of having a go at Jetpack because they're such nice people when you meet them at WordCamps. They're nicest people, but it's a product
Well, they've got a lot
that
of
has
the
no
nicest people
purpose.
working
Has
at
no real
GoDaddy, but I'm
purpose.
still not going to use their hosting.
So what was that? Sorry,
I
Sarah?
said they've got a lot of the nicest people working at GoDaddy, but I'm still not going to use their hosting.
Yeah, I'm not going to go there. I've already burnt my bridges with GoDaddy. So, yeah, right. I think we're going to go for our break, beloved panel. I think Debbie's been right up for it. I love the special effects, Debbie. We will be back in a few moments.
How do you do that?
Oh, I've got an outside system that I bring in.
Yeah. We're coming back. I think the rest of the panel are going to have to up their game. They're not up to the same standard as our guest. I expect you regular panelists to. Oh God. But we're back, folks. And just before we go into some of the other stories, you should sign up for the WP-Tonic newsletter. We had some technical problems this week sending it out, but it should be going out today. But it normally goes out on Mondays. But please sign up. We were using Jetpack. That was the problem. But to get this great newsletter with the weekly biggest news stories, plus the panel's recommendation, plus a personal editorial from me, all you're going to have to do is go over to WP-Tonic/newsletter and sign up to get that great goodie. I would get it, and that's saying something. On to story 4. Right. 10 investors discuss no code and low code landscape. I did read. I think that obviously 10 investors, probably Twitter investors. But I did find the actual how this is affecting WordPress Place, how this is coming. So, Spencer, what did you think of this particular article on TechCrunch?
There's like always two worlds. There's the world of the professional developers and then the world of the people who need to use the stuff that's made. And I think that, those worlds always come closer together when it's it's like, I can think of like a visual metaphor, but like a Gary Larson Far Side. Like you can just imagine this guy in his high-tech developer job in his cubicle and, like they pan over him and he's like on canva.com, like, using Canva to do his job and stuff. Because when the tools reach a point that the output is as good as doing it from scratch, it starts to become harder to justify it. And so I think what you're saying in this article, although it's not really like the bigger picture, is what are the options for no code versus low code? Because even the corporations have to realize like maybe it's just better to hire a bunch of people that are skilled at like design or something who use Lego blocks than it is to code everything from scratch in some cases. And all these other conversations about frameworks, they're fun, but they get so geeky and esoteric, like I'm using Grunt to launch, Gatsby this and all the rest. And we can do that all day long, but it doesn't really change the fact, like, what you really want is a headless, JavaScript website with WordPress at the back end. And I think if you can snap those two Legos together, then watch out. By the way, one last thing too, and I think Debbie probably has a lot to do with this because she deals with that corporate level. Like, there's a lot of people whose entire career is based upon maintaining some legacy system. For example, there's people who still know about those reel-to-reel computer systems that operate some of the things like our ICBM missiles. I mean, that's just the world we live in.
Hey, I got a former academic colleague who now works with Lotus.
Right.
People
and
still use that.
Like, those are what you call sweetheart jobs. Those are like,
you're just left alone. You're in this silo, and nobody really knows what the hell you're doing because it was 20 years ago but they still need you, but nobody really talks to you or what's, you're just in this little cubicle. No, what do you reckon, Debbie? Oh, you're silent, Debbie.
She's trying to recover from the fact that Lotus is still a thing.
Yeah, Lotus, don't even go there. The whole low code, no code thing is interesting to me because the first question I have is, what are we replacing? Because I still want great developers to write great code. So what were we replacing? Is this just for WordPress? Okay, well, not everything in a corporate environment can be built on WordPress, but maybe a small business environment.
Debbie, I disagree with that, Debbie. Everything could be built on WordPress,
but it shouldn't.
Yeah, Toon says the cat can drive, just not very well. To continue the Saturday Night Live quoting. I didn't have a strong opinion on this one. Where this tends to bump up into my world, which is not the WordPress world, is people are trying to claim that we won't need UX designers to do their jobs because someone's just going to draw a sketch of what a site should look like, and then code is going to pop out of that, and now we don't really need UX designers or developers because someone will draw some squares on a screen and a website will be created,
and they'll get what they deserve.
Yeah, and right, like when everyone had Front Page and decided they were a website designer, and so I'm not worried. My job is not touched here. There is a system that I like to use that I guess we could call low code or no code. It's called Axure, AXURE. # not sponsored, as we say on my show. That's a prototyping tool used by UX designers. So if you want to mock up the way a website or app or system's going to work, you can mock it up in Axure, and you don't really have to know how to code, but it doesn't then produce code that you would want to put out onto production. So that's my concern about some of these low code, no code things is, other than something like WordPress, do we really want to put the code onto a production server, or do we want a human to write the code we're putting on a production server?
Yeah, I think it's got its place, but like most things. So, Sally, what's your thoughts about this particular article?
Well, I mean, it always depends on the specific implementation and what the output is that. Yes, it's that famous consultant saying, it depends. But, the thing about no-code tools and low-code tools is it actually takes a shed load more code to write those tools than the people using it don't see the code. It doesn't mean that there is no code being written, right? There's still plenty of space and jobs for developers, so developers shouldn't feel threatened by the idea of a low-code future. It's just there are certain things that people will probably not be using code for the same way, almost all the tools we use today, people had to use code for. I mean, I remember when I was an undergraduate using the mainframe to do my word processing, and I had to use some kind of like markup language, which was especially fun for the Greek. We don't have to do that anymore. We have WYSIWYG text editors. So there's always going to be progress toward that. But of course, the amount of code behind something like Microsoft Word is immense relative to the amount of code behind the tool I was using to do word processing on the mainframe. So I do think developers are always prejudiced in favor of the code they write themselves.
Only a little bit. Only a little bit.
At least if they believe they're good developers. I don't believe that I'm such a good developer that my code is necessarily better than what somebody else writes. And so, I'm usually curious about the code, but not wedded to the idea that if I don't write it myself, it's just not worth using.
So final thoughts, John?
Yeah, no code seems to be a big buzzword these days in the web community, especially in WordPress. Like, I guess this is like another thing I guess we're supposed to be proud of, that we're like the no code leader or the low code leader. Again, it's like what is the end result of this? If we're positioning WordPress as no code, then again you're going to get more users. You're going to get more users, but they're going to be the lower end of the market, and it's going to be people that just don't have the money to hire anyone, and they're probably going to turn out a site that's not very good. And I know this only because a lot of starter businesses that approach me, they have done.
I think you're spot on. That is the goalpost.
Compare that to other. Okay, case in point. Compare that to other CMSs where you have to pay to use them. And what kind of customer does that attract?
Yeah, but it's a kind of moving goalpost, because you could say the same thing about Squarespace or Wix or anything. But there's just unless you take a time, to get an actual website up in 2022, it's never been more easier to actually get a result that you want from the website. In 2022, it's never been harder. That is the contradiction of the present situation. To get a website up, a basic website's never been easier. To actually get a result from that activity's never been harder. So that is the contradiction we are facing. Where
outcomes over outputs.
Yes, as well put, Debbie.
I didn't make it up.
Yeah. There we go. I didn't think you did, Debbie, but it was still a good.
That's famous.
That was still a good quotation, actually, Debbie. Thank you for that. On to story 5. I thought we'd finish on a high note. RT America, you were very weird and bad. I still do watch RT listeners and viewers. I was always aware that it was a propaganda of Moscow and the Kremlin. It's a bit like in Britain during the Second World War. Many British people used to listen to Berlin radio just for the jollies of listening to their crappy propaganda. RT's was much better, but I think most people... So, Spencer, I was going on a bit of a trend there. What do you reckon about this particular piece, Spencer?
I mean, to anybody who's objective, it would be really hard to say that this wasn't a propaganda network. But, we live in a world, especially in America, where people think that Tucker Carlson is a news organization. And I think that's the problem, isn't it? Like, they take advantage of the fact that they get away from being responsible as journalists for what they say by saying we're not a news network. But then he repeatedly will say things like, here's the news, I'm confused, why don't you do this? And it's like, that is the definition of propaganda, right? You have it both ways. We're just an independent reporting service from Russia. And yet it's like,
because Russia is so big on independence.
That's such a, what's that word when two opposites in the, what's the word?
An oxymoron.
Yeah, it's like the whole concept is, isn't it?
But I mean, that's the problem, isn't it? Like we have a lot of, in my previous life as an attorney, we have lots of things you can't do and say because people misconstrue today things like freedom of speech. But for example, an old classic is you can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater because the public good has been proven to be, reduced when people can say and do things like that. But yet we are here in 2022 where somebody, and I'll pick on him particularly, like a Tucker Carlson, is believed by 40 to 50% of the United States to be the Walter Cronkite of the right wing. And so he can get away with literally yelling fire in a crowded movie theater by telling people like all this crazy stuff. I won't even repeat it here, but yet claim that it's infotainment. And that's the problem, is that like we need to adjust, and it kind of relates to the Twitter story. Like God knows what Elon Musk is going to start posting up. John's, examples.
I look forward to it, Spencer. It's going to be great topics for this show.
No, nobody confuses Elon Musk as being a news reporter, though. That's a big difference. If you wear the veil of being a news service, I think you can't have it both ways. If you're the richest guy in the world and you're really just being yourself, well, call you for what you are.
So, Debbie, I kind of see this linked to a bigger, it's kind of tech because, banning, they've been banned off YouTube, they've been banned off cable. But I think I've come to the conclusion, Debbie, I publicly have told people I'm a Christian socialist, Debbie. Most people in America have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about when I say that, because they don't know what a Christian socialist is, right? Secondly, I've come to the conclusion, Debbie, is that I have a basic philosophy and ideology, but if the facts are different, I change my ideology. I've come to the conclusion that most people are totally the opposite, Debbie. They have ideology and then they find the facts that match their ideology. And I think banning RT is around that particular statement. What's your view of what I've just said, Debbie?
Yeah, well, you're talking about confirmation bias, and so that's a well-known thing where people want to just collect the information that backs up what they already believe.
Yeah.
It's kind of the cognitive bias that relates to the echo chamber. But I think what I would want to say about the larger RT story is, hasn't RT been on the air for years and years? And is someone only giving a shit now because of what's going on in the Ukraine? Where was everybody to give a shit about this for the last XYZ years? And I feel like in general, nobody does anything about anything until we have to reach some sort of bizarre critical mass, and the only one who seems unsusceptible not susceptible to that is Facebook. Like I think we're at the point where Facebook could just mass murder children and no one would regulate them. Like it's just I don't understand why Facebook can still do all the things that they do and face seemingly no scrutiny, seemingly no consequences. It's absolutely bizarre. They just released that. You should have had your number 5 be Facebook saying, oh, we had a bug for 6 months where we were showing people lots of porn and violence. That's not a bug. That's a controlled experiment. So I think when I think about this RT thing, I think, yeah, so why did we allow that for as long as we did if we all knew what it was? And we can ask the same questions about Fox News or OAN or whatever their names were. I stay out of, I haven't watched the news since 2016. And when I do read the news, I only read theroot.com. So that's the only news I get currently. And so I'm in my own bubble of I don't want to know. I'm in a bubble of I don't want to know.
You must have a special effects that have bubbles, Debbie.
I don't have bubbles, but I think I do have. Yeah, I don't have bubbles. I do have confetti, but I don't feel very confetti about this. I mean, the question
you need
is,
bubbles. You need bubbles.
I don't have bubble. I do have.
I'm disappointed,
rain.
Debbie.
I have crying rain.
Yes.
But
you need the Georgenta Super 200 sunglasses.
Yeah, sorry, I
that,
don't.
that turn black if anything threatening comes towards you.
Thank
So
you.
you don't have to look
I
at
don't
it.
have these things. But again, my question is, if you think you're holding somebody accountable or responsible, you've got baby teeth. Where's your adult teeth? Because if these services are things we don't want in our environment, then why didn't we do something about this earlier? And if these are things we do want in our environment, then why are we blocking it now? And so I think that there's just I think we just have to take a look at what we're allowing and what we're blocking, and why do we wait for the Third World War to say, oops, we probably shouldn't have allowed Russian propaganda in a country that's not friends with Russia.
Well, so John, I've got such mixed feelings about this, John, because like Chris Hedges was one of the main presenters on RT, an independent show. Chris is seen as one of the top left-wing intellectuals in America. His excuse to be on RT is, well, if you're a left-wing intellectual, it's one of the few platforms left to you, and hardly anybody watched it anyway. I thought it was I still admire him for his intellectual ability. You know, he's written 14 books, and he can
But he's sold out to work for Russian propaganda. Am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah, he's taken the coin for about 6 years. You know, he takes their money. He takes their money though as a presenter.
Well, then congratulations on your intellectual prowess and the size of your intellect. But guess what? You sold out to Russian propaganda. Done with you, whoever you were.
Yeah. So, and the other thing, John, is I get as somebody brought up in Britain, John, I always get a bit queasy because I'm a great fan of George Orwell. I get very queasy when people are banned. You know,
do you know the paradox of intolerance, right?
No, I don't.
Okay, so the paradox of intolerance is you believe that we must allow like every form of speech and ideas to compete, but then what happens is you get authoritarians or fascists that rise up, and then once they come to power, they restrict everybody else's rights, human rights, and speech. I think the thing that's insidious, I think for decades or even centuries, Western culture and the United States, in particular, the culture here has gone really unexamined by the people who live here. And when I say the culture, I mean the dominant group culture, so white culture. And there's a lot of things that we're starting to examine, but it's been several decades in the making. Reconstruction, civil rights. We have the thing, Black Lives Matter. We have all these extrajudicial killings. We have the rise of Trump, but you see the rise of people like Putin, Viktor Orban, Bolsonaro in Brazil, Le Pen in France, and it's all very interconnected. And it's not a mistake, but there's a lot of people out there that want to believe in anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. They want to believe that any refugees that are a darker shade of skin or speak a different language are evil, and it's a lot of things that you have to be careful about what you put into your mind. And TV stations, cable providers, they can choose to do what they want. It's not a censoring thing. It's a business move, I think, as far as like the cable networks. Yeah. They know that it's bad for business. But more importantly, I think the bigger picture is there are a lot of people that still want to believe conspiracy theories, or that, LGBT people are a danger to society, or that Jewish people are greedy, or any number of these things, which are false. And outlets like RT, OAN, and Fox News, and AM talk radio promote these ideas. So
I think you made some great points. But when I listen to Fox News. I listen to Fox. I don't consider Fox News as news. It's just propaganda. I consider RT. I don't.
Well, if you want to be educated, it's always good to know what people on the other side are saying.
I can go on Twitter and see that, or go on
right.
Facebook. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you don't necessarily want to absorb yourself in it. But look, I always used to laugh that, I would be hearing in classes about, the propaganda and the this and the that in Russia and here are these kids in the school and they're like teaching them to sing Russian nationalistic songs. And I'm like, hello, we're getting up here to say the Pledge of Allegiance every morning and singing, God bless America. Like, I don't see a difference. Like it's different countries raising their kids to, love their countries. It seems like it would be either equally good or equally dangerous all around. Not that the propaganda coming out of every country is equally good or equally dangerous all the time. But, given our history, I don't know why Americans get so darn self-righteous.
Here we go. So on to our recommendations, a much easier subject. I thought, thank you, panel, for that discussion. I thought it was very insightful, and Debbie was excellent. On to our recommendations. Mine is an old company. I interviewed the CEO yesterday. It's a great product. It's Blog Vault and Mailcare. Fantastic services, fantastic company. If you're looking for quality backup and security, look at their products. You could do a lot worse.
You've probably used them even if you don't know it, because a number of the hosts white label their stuff for their import your website.
Well, I use it for my hosting company, Sally, but we just tell you that we're using it. So Spencer, what's your recommendation of the week?
This is a very esoteric little one, but it's useful. It came up. This is called Admin CSS MU. It's just like a 75 kilobyte one line plugin. But what it does is it provides you a way. Let's say you're working with a client site or your own, and there's some shenanigan going on in the dashboard, like we've talked about in the last couple of weeks, where you install this plugin and puts this gigantic banner up at the top, or it puts the notice warnings inside your plugin area.
Jetpack,
yeah. So let's say you are reasonably proficient with CSS. I used to teach it, so that's me. And you just want to hide the thing, but it's not playing by the other rules. This at least gives you a quick Band-Aid way to just put some admin side CSS, which for our listeners is different than the front-facing CSS, where you can just use your inspector, make a quick rule that specifically tries to debilitate that little shenanigan. Sometimes it doesn't, because that's where I take an ice pick and try to shove it into my frontal cortex when developers specifically do these notices that don't have unique classes that you can hide. But this is like one tool in an arsenal for somebody who runs a site for a client to fix that problem. So I thought it was useful without having to rely upon going into the child theme or running a snippet or something else.
Yeah, fantastic. Make sure it's in Slack, and if Debbie's got a recommendation, Uncle Spencer, put that into Slack for us, can you? So Debbie, have you got a recommendation for the tribe?
Yeah, mine, of course, is not WordPress related, but I think everybody listening could at least check it out because it's a company I really love, and hashtag not sponsored. I pay them. They don't pay me. It would be Monday.com. Monday.com is one of my favorite tools on the planet, and I use it for just about everything from tracking all of the leads and proposals that I'm giving to clients, to coming up with project plans, to managing the project and showing it to the client, the progress. So I just love Monday.com for just about everything you could do with it, and it'll replace some of your spreadsheets and other things that you might be using to create different documents or whatever. I can't say enough about it. I happily pay them.
Oh, that's fantastic. But why are their adverts so nauseating?
Yeah, that I can't answer. But so far, I mean, the people who work there, whenever I've interacted with them, they've been lovely. You know, and can we name an advert that's not nauseating? I mean, every time I see an ad rolling before a YouTube video, I'm like, wow, who came up with this shit? So I think that, you know, so we can pick on Monday's ads, but really, you know, what you
wasn't
miss the
picking on, I just
Grammarly
was-
ads? You're like, oh, I miss the Grammarly ads rolling before the YouTube videos. Those were terrible with the woman with all the vocal fry, the girl with the vocal fry who wants to write better. Oh my God. So no, I hate all these ads, but I love Monday.com, #not sponsored. I pay them.
That's great. Sally, have you got a recommendation for the tribe?
Yes, my recommendation is called GetScreen.me. It was an AppSumo deal recently, and it's easy remote access to another computer.
I keep away from that, Sumo. I'm much wealthier over the past 6 months because I just don't.
I don't buy
I barred
very many
it.
of
I just
their-
don't buy anything from there. And
Yes, I don't buy
account's
many of their
increased.
things. But see, my best friend and former housemate is exceedingly technically challenged. And I am the person left in her life to be the tech support. And it's a 45-minute drive from my place to her place. So I just installed this, set this up on her computer, and basically it's a browser access to somebody else's computer without messing with all the kind of fussy Windows remote access things. So that if I need to take a look at something on her machine, I can just do it. And if you have been nominated tech support for your family, I would recommend this tool.
It was probably initially developed by the CIA.
This has always been a great, not this particular, this one's good too, but like this idea has been useful since the beginning of time of, you know, having clients, because honestly, like, you know, just wandering the screen and you're trying to explain, go up to the left. It's the blue. What? You know,
Go on to the right. What's that? Put it into Slack, Sandy, please. My beloved John, have you got a recommendation for the tribe?
This one is this is a different take. And from our first story, this is from masterwp.com. Why is WordPress.com squeezing its free users? This is more of an opinion piece and like a news story, but it had a lot of points in here that had me nodding my head in agreement, and definitely finishes strong with some of the just observations that a lot of these I agree with. So
yeah,
check it
right
out.
to you. Thank you, panel. It's been a great show. Debbie needs to go off and do her own. We're going to hopefully Debbie will agree to come back, because
It's so good to have you here.
I've been really impressed with the special effects, Debbie. So you get
Thanks.
you get a gold star.
I should have recommended that. I should have recommended my broadcast system where I have my effects.
Yes, definitely.
never too late.
It's never too late, Debbie. Oh God. We'll see you soon, tribe. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everybody.